right, and welcome to the 56th episode of the RF Generation Collectorcast. The numbers climb, so does my amazement. I was looking, I think we've been it's 8 years, I think?
Yeah, it's 8 or 9, yeah, I can't remember now. We'd have to look that up, but...
I think 2012, was when all this stuff started, so...
Sounds about right.
So we've been inflicting pain on your eardrums for 8 years, on and off, so... But hey, at this point in time, you're the one that chose to listen, so I can't feel too bad for you. But today we wanted to have a show. Bill's not here, as everybody can hear. Kelsey's here with me, but Bill couldn't make it. He's on vacation, and he had a sweet deal where he could extend his vacation. Sounded like gratis. So
yeah.
If somebody offers you a house to stay in on the beach longer, the answer is yes, right?
Absolutely.
Just like if somebody asks you if you're a god. Right? The answer is yes. But other than that, it's been a couple of weeks. We'll kind of get started as we usually have been doing lately with what we've been up to. So, Kelsey, what's been going on in your neck of the woods?
Took a little trip to my in-laws. They live in Edmonton, so we stayed there for the long weekend up here.
And that's still a long trip for you, right?
It's about 8 to 9 hour drive to get there and then same back, yeah. And we had some car troubles, so we're dealing with that now that we're home. Not a fun thing.
Oh, that really sucks.
Yeah.
Is it hopefully nothing major though, right?
We don't know yet. It's yeah. We have someone looking at it in a few days here.
Oh, but still runs though, right?
Yeah, but don't sound good, and it's got trouble getting power up hills, and yeah, it's not in peak performance. It's not an old vehicle. We bought it brand new. It's 6 years old now.
That's not old at all. Yeah, no. Just long enough to get out of warranty. Is that the problem?
Exactly.
Oh yeah. No.
So we got our fingers crossed that it's gonna not be crazy expensive.
Yeah, and I would imagine where you're at, and obviously I've never been to your place, but I mean it's not flat ground, right?
No, in BC, we're mountains everywhere. There's once you get into Alberta through Manitoba, it's super super flat, but over here, yeah, it's hills and mountains everywhere.
Oh yeah, that sounds like
even going to my parents, it's uphill the entire way, and they live in the same city as me.
Do you guys have those roads that where you can look off one side and it's just death if you went off that side? Those
are pretty common. like I was saying, going up to my parents' house in the same city, we have one of those drop-offs.
So do you hear about news reports about idiot drives off cliff and dies, or?
No, almost never. People are pretty safe with those. The idiots, it's when you're out in the boonies and there's a twisting road. They always try to do that too fast, and you just see them sticking out of the off the ditch constantly, every 20 minutes. You'll see another truck sticking out of the ditch.
Everything's flat here and people still can't figure it out, so I can imagine it's probably not pleasant there.
Yeah, it's every year we get snow. It's the first month we get snow, it's nobody's ever driven in snow for that month until they get used to it again.
It's the same thing here. Human beings' memories are unfortunately extremely short, so it's like a gnat. But
yeah.
Well, besides hopefully not big car troubles, what else have you been up to?
Well, when we were on that trip, my brother-in-law just happened to have his Super Nintendo Mini set up in our room. So
good pick.
I constantly wake up 2 hours, 3 hours before the rest of my family. So this time, instead of just reading, I had a Super Nintendo to play every morning. So I went through Mega Man X, Donkey Kong Country, Super Punch-Out, and Kirby's Dream Course while we were there.
How is Super Punch-Out on something like that? Is there a lot of lag? Or?
That's why I picked that one. It was great.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No issues at all with any of these games with any sort of lag or input. Just fantastic. Very impressed.
I've never liberated mine from the box, so I haven't used it.
I haven't yet either. I plan to eventually because I want to play that Star Fox 2. But after this test run, I'm pretty happy with that purchase. So whenever I get to that, looking forward to it even more now.
Very good. Well, that might be playing sort of how some of our conversation a little later in the show in terms of hardware, but yeah, okay, well, good. So some Super Nintendo, that sounds great.
Yeah, and then I've also beaten Palamedes on NES, Wayne's World on NES, and yeah, it's like it's not good, which is fine. I play lots of games that aren't good, but there's the platforming in the last two stages is super, super hard and really precise, which is the wrong kind of not good.
Yeah, and Wario's Woods was like one of those puzzle games I never got good at. So, I mean, obviously you did.
Yeah, I beat that today, actually, just like an hour or two before we got on the call here. But I've been working at that one for a long, long time. Really hard, but I really came to enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. It's kind of one of those that just kind of gets forgotten about, right? Like Nintendo's really never gone back to do anything with that, have they?
Totally. And it's, Toad's the star of the game. I love Toad.
But it's Wario's Woods. I mean, yeah, I know what you mean.
He's the bad guy. You're trying to kill him.
Yeah, I'm just, seems like an odd mashup. They're like, we've made a couple Yoshi cookie puzzle games or whatever. What else can we do? So,
and in the boss rush mode, like I'm assuming Wario's like leads all the bosses, but they're like freaking dragons and like the Grim Reaper and like a golem. Like he's got some cool henchmen.
Toad does not mess around though.
No, Toad blows them all up, bombs them to death.
It's and through death, I guess is.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. So that's what's the number on NES games left?
That was number 595 out of 669.
So number 600 is coming up soon.
5 more. Yeah, this Wario Woods got me stuck much longer than I thought. So hopefully 5 games I'll probably make like number 600 a real long one on purpose.
Okay.
Do another big role-playing game. Like I got Might and Magic and Dragon Warrior 4 still left. Those two will both take some time.
Might and Magic, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Very good. So I'm curious though, have you I don't remember if we talked about that. Have you picked out the last game, what the last game will be?
Yeah, I pretty early on. Like I've been doing this for about 10 years now, and I've had that game put away for almost that whole time.
Okay. And have you ever beaten that game? You don't have to tell me, but have you ever beaten that game before?
No, never even played it. It'll be
okay.
Going in blind.
All right, very good. So I look forward to your final game review of Silent Service.
Spoilers.
All right. So what have you been doing outside the game realm?
I've been catching up on some readings. My wife took me camping, which I hate, so I brought a book with me to kill some time.
That's understandable.
And then same thing when we're at my brother-in-law's, lots of downtime, so lots of reading. So I read Video Games in the Beginning by Ralph Baer. Oh, yeah, I've got a copy of that. I haven't read it yet. It was awesome. I was surprised how interesting I found it, and just how interesting he is as a writer, and the inventing that he was doing in like the 60s and 70s. Pretty interesting stuff. Yeah. It's kind of, kind of a really interesting guy, kind of varied past, that did a lot of things, right? And I had no idea. Like I knew the Odyssey and I knew the Simon before I read the book, and that was it. Yeah, kind of very prolific, right? Yeah, and like some of the tech he had that he just couldn't figure out how to sell it. Like if he was more of a salesman, we would have had some like really cool game stuff early on. Like when he was trying to sell the first Odyssey, he thought he should sell it to a cable company rather than Magnavox or a manufacturer, because he figured it would tie into their programming. So what he had set up was the Pong demo, but the cable company would display a real life tennis court, like live on TV, would be the background for it, broadcasting. And this was in like 68 or 69. And he had it running, like demoing it at these cable companies. Which just sounds awesome. Yeah. All right, it's your turn at Wimbledon. For the next half hour, here's the court. Exactly, which was a cool idea too. But yeah. How do you sell commercials in it? Is probably the problem. But he had a plan for that. But I also read a book you picked up for me called Phoenix, Fall and Rise of Video Games. Leonard Herman, I think, is the author on that one. Yes. Yeah. So that one, also very interesting, but very dry. It's a very clinical look at things. Yes. And a lot of focus on unreleased things too. Like this is what they were showing off at CES this year, and then you read like 2 years later, like they canceled all that.
Yeah,
because everybody had a keyboard coming out and everybody had a modem coming out, and none of them came out with keyboards or modems. And
yeah, except for like Coleco, because they got basically like legally sued into it or whatever, right? Because they had promised it.
yeah. And speaking of suing, like every chapter right at the end, it's like, here's 10 companies that were suing another 10 companies.
Yeah, I mean, it does almost read like legal briefs and stuff in some cases. I mean, again, it's a historian digging up history and throwing it on a page. It's not, there is no embellishment or story there.
Yeah.
It's just, these are the facts, man.
Wait, so I like same thing, like really, really dry, but I found the earlier stuff that I was more unfamiliar with pretty interesting, like from the like most of the 80s and the early 90s. And then after that, it became more things that I was aware of. So not as many surprises, but the first part of that book I found really interesting.
You might want to look up, if you can find a copy, there's a book called Zap, The Rise and Fall of Atari, that came out in the very like early 80s. It was probably like one of the first books of its kind over, like a game company. And or maybe it was The Fall and Rise. Anyway, but it's been long out of print. I've got a copy of that, and it's well written. It's good. So if you want to search through some out of print book services or something for a copy, I'd recommend it. It's not a hugely long read, but it's good. Yeah,
because I also read Opening the Xbox by Dean Takahashi, I think it is. So yeah, I've enjoyed all three of these books, so I'm definitely looking for more. I've got one more on my backlog called The Revolutionaries at Sony, about launching the PS1. So once I'm done that, I'll start looking for some other ones. But the Xbox book was a little more interesting after Phoenix because it focused on the people building the Xbox, about like mostly 2 years prior to it launching, and then the like 6 months after it launched. It kind of falls in that window, and you get a little bit of Microsoft history and stuff from guys that have been there since the 80s. But it was a lot more interesting just seeing people's lives than just the cold hard facts through it.
So probably like Seamus Blackley and some of those guys.
He's a huge focus on there, and Ed Freeze, Robbie Bach. Yeah, a whole bunch of those guys. And they mentioned some videos that I want to look up, like old CES and E3 videos where they were like pushing the Xbox. They sound really neat. The Rock came out on stage with Bill Gates to like sell the Xbox, and they had like a little banter going back and forth, and that sounds like a really interesting video to watch. So I gotta look that one up.
It's probably like some terrible quality, ancient, like GameSpot video or something.
It's probably exactly what it is.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah. But I've never been a big Xbox guy, so it was neat to kind of get some insight into it, and it really solidified some of the feeling that I have towards it, I think. And the types of people that played it, especially early on, you can like see the...
What are you trying to say?
They're not what I grew up with. Like, it brought a new demographic, like it made video gaming cool, and the cool kids that used to tease me for playing video games started playing Xbox, and it was just really weird to me early on.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And you can see the people making it are like the people that used to tease me, even though they were all nerds and they grew up playing games and making games and stuff. But,
yeah, and everybody plays games, so...
Yeah, like you mentioned Seamus Blackley, like you read early on about him, and they kind of make him a sympathetic character prior to working at Microsoft. And then once he's there, though, like he's just not a human being that I would like to spend time with, but very, very interesting to learn about.
Well, yeah, as soon as you start reading about the history of some of these folks, you're like, okay, they may be very driven, and they may be very good at what they do. That doesn't mean they're the kind of people I'd like to pal around with.
Exactly. And I'm not like, he doesn't come off as a bad person or anything, just not a personality that jives with mine.
Yeah, like I sat in on a panel that Ed Freeze was on in 2010, and seemed like a really nice guy.
Yeah, I was going to say the one guy out of that book that I got a lot of respect for was Ed Freeze. I really liked what he was doing the whole way through. Like, Just seems like a really cool guy.
Yeah, he wasn't. Even that was that year he had put out Halo 2600, and so I mean, he was a programmer he knew what was going on. So it was pretty interesting. Well, definitely. Very good.
And it's funny too, because the end of the book ends 6 months into the Xbox, so it's like asking questions like, "Will it catch up to the PS2? Like, will it?" And you're like, "Oh my god, not even a contest there."
But the 360,
brought it back up.
Yeah, and the Xbox One.
They've never like won a generation. Like if you go in sales wise. Even the 360 gen, as good as they did, they got third place in the end.
Yeah, but it was basically number one in the U.S. though, right? So...
Yeah, without that market, I don't think they would do well any gen.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're definitely it's a niche thing. But I mean, you could say the same thing of the PSP. I mean, kind of everywhere but Japan, where it was kind of crazy. But that's how it goes sometimes. And what else is up your alley?
I was reading some Batman books, getting psyched up for these. There's this fandom event in a couple weeks for DC, where the rumor is that Rocksteady was going to announce their new game, and WB Montreal was going to announce their new game. Okay. And just yesterday, Rocksteady tweeted about the Suicide Squad hunts the Justice League.
So is that going to tie into the new Suicide Squad movie that's coming?
I would be really surprised. I think it's its own standalone thing. And honestly, like the concept sounds amazing, and I was super, super excited. And then just today, I found out it's supposed to be a games as a service style game. And all of my hype just went from 100% to like 5%.
Yeah, that's not my deal either. But,
So I'm hoping the WB Montreal game, which is rumored to be another one in the like Batman Arkham kind of series. I'm hoping that one still scratches the itch that I want.
Yeah, I don't know why so many companies can't figure out that single player experiences are still fine, but well, that's okay.
To be fair, like if it is the case that WB comes out with that one, they're doing both. They're doing the games as a service for people who want that, and they're doing the single player game for people who want that. I just thought like a Suicide Squad game built around like hunting down and killing Justice League members sounds unreal. It sounds like so much fun to have. Like,
they can't really kill them though, right?
Sure, they'll figure a way to revive them after, or make it a simulation or a dream or whatever at the end. But during it, like, could you imagine like hunting down Batman and Green Lantern and Superman? It'd be so awesome.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. That's for sure. I'd be. I don't know if I've, at least my exposure to the Suicide Squad, those are my favorite villains from the DC universe, but I guess I'm more of like traditional like Legion of Doom kind of,
Well, they can cycle a roster. It doesn't have to be any set team, and I'm sure that's what they're going to do if it's games as a service. They're going to have new characters announced every few months kind of thing coming into it.
Yeah, it'd be fun to be like Black Manta or something, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
some laser eyes.
Yeah, like Black Manta's pretty tough. That's why I was kind of sad. I mean, I enjoyed Aquaman, but I really wish it would have been focused more around Black Manta. But it's okay. It was a good movie anyway.
Sure, he'll show up again in the sequel.
That's probably what I would guess is Aquaman 2, or haven't they already announced that, right? So
I don't know. The only one that I know is that there's that Snyder Cut, and there's the new Wonder Woman. I haven't
Wonder Woman 84.
Really heard plans of anything past that.
Oh, I think they keep rumbling about new Batman, right?
Yeah, but it's not connected. It's the Robert Pattinson one. I don't think it's connected to any of the other movies. It's its own standalone thing again. Oh,
okay. They're not gonna. You don't think they're gonna tie it back in, or?
No, it doesn't sound like it at all. I've been following that one. It sounds pretty interesting. I'm pretty curious for that one.
Okay, yeah. And then there's obviously, I've heard like the Suicide Squad thing. They're going to try that again.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That one is confirmed. And I really hope they do another Shazam movie too.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
I thought I heard that was pretty much greenlit. I mean, it's way too early for anything to happen with it, but I thought I heard that was a greenlit already.
I hope so.
I would imagine they'll have to have Justice League versus Legion of Doom. That's what they've been leading up to in these movies, right?
Yeah, but I don't know how many of the actors are coming back for roles. Like, So it could be a whole new cast.
I mean, that's obviously like at the end in all these movies, you keep seeing, like Luthor pulling all these people in, and so I mean they have to be building towards that, wouldn't you think? I mean, if not, it would be a real letdown.
I think that was the plan, and then I don't know. I think maybe some of the pushback on some of the later movies, like Justice League in particular, maybe they're rethinking that plan.
Yeah, I don't know. They've rebooted some of these things, and I don't know. It's like, gosh, can we do I don't want to see another reboot already of some of these things.
That's true.
It's like, how many times? Well, and I think they've already said too, like another Joker movie, right?
I haven't seen anything confirmed, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I thought I saw something about that there's going to be a sequel to Joker, because obviously that did fantastically for them. So
I still haven't seen it. That's the only superhero movie I think I've missed in the last 2 decades.
Probably like the best one.
I've heard it's really good. I'm looking forward to it. It's just
it's not a superhero movie. That's why it's one I would like to own, and I've not seen it for sale at a price I'm willing to pay yet. Like, it was on sale for like $30 right when it came out, so I'm waiting to find it for like 10, 15 kind of thing. I think you'll like it. It's definitely it's its own thing. And I think if they followed that path more, they'll find success.
Cool. I hope so.
But yeah, whenever you watch it, then we'll chat about it. How's about that?
That sounds awesome.
All right, very good. Well, anything else new in your neck of the woods, or?
No, just nice to be back home and helping out at my old store, trying to get it ready to reopen in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So I've been doing some like drywalling and painting, and we did a whole like move the old store to the new store like in one day. Rented a big moving van and hauled everything over, and that was a super long day, but it's fun to see it come together.
Do you get paid in store credit, or?
No, this is the first time I've been on the payroll ever, so I get a paycheck.
Are you like, wow, this store finally decided to pay me after all these years?
It's surprising.
Even after owning it. Hey, I actually made money.
Yeah. I really like what they're doing with the place. So they like found a big open area, and so they got to design and build everything from scratch.
Awesome.
So they've got like event rooms they're setting up and workshop in the back, and like I never had a staff room. They got a staff room built in there, and like it's gonna look great. Do
they still embrace some of the arcade stuff?
Yeah, there's a spot for that. Yeah, they're making everything kind of modular so that when they do events, they can slide things out of the way really, really easy. So if it's a Magic Card event, they have extra tables coming out. If it's a video game event, those tables go away and they can haul out more TVs really easy. It's a pretty smart setup.
Cool. I was going to ask too that you said they closed it. How long have they been closed down? Has it been a COVID thing, or has it just been it's a moving thing?
Not to get too deep into the weeds, but they had a switch of landlords. I thought
you mentioned something
2 months ago, and the guys who bought the building were the neighbors of our old location. And they were not good neighbors. So the second they found out they were taking ownership, he's like, we need to move now. And it was a good thing because they evicted them last month. So they were supposed to be still operating right now, and they got evicted early during COVID. And apparently they have no plans to do anything with the building until the spring. So they're just being jerks about it, which is what we all assumed as soon as they took ownership. So,
well, foresight. That's good news that they had the foresight to make a plan. So
yeah, definitely.
Very good, very good. Do they still get pretty decent trade-ins and stuff up there? Or?
Yeah, things are slower now for sure than when in the early days. Because we've just found most of the stuff that's around this area.
Right, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, it still trickles in, and there's still a lot of people that travel because we're kind of like a hub city for the northern part of the province. So we still get really cool things once in a while. It's just less frequent than it was. And I know he's pushed more. Like the guy who bought the business from me had his own computer business before, where he builds like custom PCs and does tech support and stuff. So he's been branching into that stuff too. So they do a lot more than when I had the store.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about when we had the game store, in town, and when it first opened, that was it. Like, all these amazing things kept showing up because, again, they're just hoovering everything up from the surrounding area. So things that were in closets and all that stuff came out, and then after a while, it just kind of got stale.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard to get decent product in to sell, and that has its own life cycle issues in terms of keeping a store moving. So what do? Do you go outside to get inventory? Do you just say forget it and focus more on modern stuff that comes in?
There's going to be a console transition right away, so I'm sure they'll see a ton of Xbox One, PS4 stuff. And I haven't been following too closely, but it looks like our dollar is rising a little bit compared to yours, which is awesome because I used to pull in so much stuff from the States when our dollars were on parity. But our dollar's been so weak compared to yours for years now that it just wasn't possible. So if that keeps going the way it is and our dollar gets parity again, that really helps keep the inventory lively and interesting.
Yeah, I would imagine, because then you can afford to go out and buy huge lots or buy out people or whatever.
Exactly.
And turn a profit. So, well, very good. Very good. Things in my neck of the woods. Why do I keep saying that? Edit that out.
Not going to do that.
Yes, you are. Things for me have been kind of slow. In terms of like gaming stuff, it's been busy otherwise. It's just my time has been split. Work is heavy right now. So a lot of times by the time I'm done with work, I'm kind of spent. But I've been doing a little more reading. I got a collection of essays by James Baldwin that I've been reading through to kind of keep going through, some of the pieces that I've been reading about lately, which if you've never read Baldwin, I
was going to say, is that Alex brother? One of those actor boys?
No, definitely not. No, James Baldwin was a black author, very big during the civil rights era, the 50s and 60s. Left the U.S. to go to Paris for a time, came back, did a lot of writing, wrote some novels, wrote a lot of essays and things. So this is a collection of his essays, and very good, very dense. He's one of those authors that's extremely intelligent and
doesn't dumb it down for guys like me.
Well, for me, right? It's just how some books are, you can just kind of read through them and it comes as it comes. And some of this, the structure, and there's so much in it that sometimes I have to stop and reread a sentence to kind of go back and get all of it.
For sure.
So it's a little slower in my going, but that's not his fault. That's my fault. The writing style itself is brilliant, but again, that's just my lack of being able to read at that level. But very profound, very interesting writing. I won't go into all the details. Been listening to a lot of speeches and some lectures and things. That kind of helps me disconnect and think about some different things sometimes. And also got a few things in to work on. So work, like last, it was the winter time. Yeah, I won't go into too much, but our company was bought up by another one. And so the IT guys, I knew them pretty well. And they're like, hey, Chris, we're going to be clearing some stuff out. We've got some really, really old computer stuff. And are you still into that? Do you want that stuff? And I said, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm game. But it was in storage and it was cold. And it was like, okay, well, when it warms up, we'll go out there and we'll get it. And I just kind of not thought much about it. But it just struck my mind a week or two ago. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. So I got a hold of one of the guys. I'm like, hey, can we go out and we'll just get that stuff where it's nice before it, gets cold or anything again. So we went out and pulled everything out of it, and ended up being, some, old stuff. One of the things was kind of really surprising. I sent pictures to you guys, but
yeah,
one picture is this, it's It's a hard drive. I mean, that's exactly what it is. But I mean, trying to describe it in terms of what everybody that's listening right now is thinking of is probably not correct, even in the slightest. I mean, we're talking about a hard drive from like 1982 that would have been used in like servers. So this thing is 43 pounds. It's, probably, a foot by, half a foot thick or something. It comes in its own carrying bag.
You gonna plug it into your Xbox One and download a game onto it?
I'd be shocked if it still works. It possibly could, but it's just a monstrosity. So it's more of just a curiosity piece.
Sure.
I thought, I don't know what I'm.
How much storage does something that big have? Do you know?
I would probably guess it's probably around like 10 megabytes.
All right.
So at the time, that would have been insane.
Yeah.
Storage, but you could tell it's modular. It was built to be swapped out, right? So this was probably used as backup, data backup, and there's some paperwork in there I haven't looked at, so I'm going to guess that's what it was. It was they would probably rotate out a few drives for data backups.
So since you work at a hospital, would this have like sensitive client information from the 70s on it?
I mean, if you could actually recover anything off of it, it could possibly, but the statute of limitations is expired and all of that. So,
so you can go look up everyone's colonoscopy results from 1979.
Probably not. I mean, that would have been way before like any diagnostic data. It would have been things like accounting data.
Okay.
So, I mean, it wouldn't be anything interesting about anybody. It'd just be like, this account owes this much money. This account owes this much money. You might see names attached to them, but right. It wouldn't be anything exciting. And probably a lot of those people are dead. So. But I would have guessed that you probably, I don't even know what you could even hook it up to at these point in time. You'd have to go to a museum to have anything that it could even interface with. So it's an IBM drive from an old IBM. It's back when servers took up rooms. So I don't know. There's that children's museum that's local. I think I might reach out to them and say, hey, for your, would this be interesting so you could show kids, what technology used to look like if they'd be interested in taking it. There's nothing I can do with it besides set it out and go, hey, look at that. But they might, that's the same thing they would do, except a lot of people could go, hey, look at that.
Right.
And then besides that were two, this is the part that really surprised me, where they were two of the earliest portable computers. And I use that term extremely loosely. It was a compact portable, the very first one, and then a compact portable 2. And basically the compact portable was like the first portable PC that was made.
They look so cool. I really like the style of those things.
They're essentially a suitcase. They have a leather strapped handle on top, and you carry them like a suitcase.
The leather handle's still like functional. It's not.
Yeah, it looks great. The leather is in fantastic shape, surprisingly. Well, these things have been sitting in storage forever, so.
Right.
But the bottom part of it is actually the keyboard, and so you flip it on its side, and the keyboard detaches, and then you have the screen and the disk drives and everything. But these things are insanely heavy. I mean, the only thing that makes them portable is they stuck a handle on a giant PC of that era. Basically.
That's why every nerd in 1980 was super buff, carrying around their computer all the time.
I was amazed. I looked at like the price tags of what this would have cost when it first came out. It was like $5,000.
Oh.
In like 1984 money. You know what I mean? So you're probably talking about, $12,000 or something computer. I mean, just again, it was just unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
So one of them's from 84, and then the portable 2 is like from 87. So those have become more popular. But that's kind of what Compaq did at the time. It was really early, PC clones and whatnot. But so the first one, the portable, I'll just call it the portable 1, even though it's just called the portable. It was dead, really. The fan would kick on, that was it. But the fan run off AC power, so that didn't surprise me. I just dug into it last night and got to look at it, and basically it's just a lot of the capacitors were just totally fried. I mean, like literally had popped. And so, not surprising. So I'm going to order the parts for that, recap the power supply, and see, what else runs or doesn't run on it. The other one had a disk failure, and so it's either the card for the disk drive controller or the drive itself, so I'm gonna have to do some swapping around. But I've got some parts on order to take a look at that too. So hopefully, within a couple weeks or a month or something, I'll have them up and running. And I don't know, it'll be really interesting to deal with some ancient DOS machine. Like one of them, I believe, is it's maybe like an 8086, like an XT class machine. The other one's a 286.
You gonna keep one to send with your next daughter who goes to college? Is her computer?
That would be funny. She would disown me, I'm sure, when that happens. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, what am I going to do with them? I don't know. I would play with them for a while, maybe sell them, keep them. I have no idea, but they are super cool. They're like, I show my kids, and they're like, what? I
showed my kid. He thought, I'm like, don't these look cool? Like, computers nowadays are kind of ugly compared to this. He's like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure the kids think like the new, MacBooks and things are super cool, but I dig the 80s tech. So, just when everything was big and beige and, and when you would type on a keyboard and it like made like lots of noise when you typed, and that's the dream. But as far as gaming goes, I just honestly haven't had time I won't say that. I haven't played anything. So
anything coming out in the near future you're excited for?
The DLC for Neo 2 came out on July 30th. I haven't tried it out.
And you texted me too that there was going to be an update to Sekiro in another month or two here.
There is. So they're doing a free update which has like a boss rush mode, and then I think like a camera mode or something. It wasn't anything huge, but I guess boss rush if you wanted to do. That's not really my thing, but I suppose, if you really like doing that. The thing that struck me most about that was this game was like a year and a half old, and you're doing a free update not even announced, just like, by the way, there's an update.
Nobody was expecting anything from that game. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going, huh? So yeah, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, if you haven't played Sekiro yet, you should. I guess, right? You loved it.
Very good. Yeah, I did love it. It's my favorite FromSoft game.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's mine, but it was definitely pretty cool. I don't know. I kind of went back and forth. I kind of thought early on that Ghost of Tsushima would look cool, but then I saw more on it, and I went like, probably not for me.
Oh, really? I'm the opposite. That one's really got my interest. If I see one come into the store, I might have to snag it.
Yeah, I'm like, open world Assassin's Creed Samurai? No.
Other than Samurai, all that stuff usually sounds terrible to me, but that word Samurai makes those things sound more fun. I'm like, I'll walk around in that world for a bit, maybe. It sounds really cool. It looks super pretty.
Yeah, you can tell. I mean, that's it. I've heard like drastically, like it's the most awesome thing in the world, or like just don't bother.
Yeah.
And so
that too.
It's either from what I read, it's either gonna be your thing or it's not. So I'm fine with that, and it doesn't sound like it's my thing unless somebody tells me. I think unless somebody that knows what I like could tell me differently, I'll probably just.
I definitely plan to try it, so I'll let you know how I'm feeling. If I think you'll find any joy out of it.
That, and the other thing I think about is, it seems pretty obvious to me that this will probably get a PS5 version.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly.
So, do I need to be in a rush to play it? No, because they'll probably slap extra stuff in it and serve it back up for PS5.
That's how I'm feeling about Last of Us 2 as well, which I really liked the first one. Want to see the story in the second one, especially with how divisive it's been with people. I want to see where I land there. But I'm not in a rush. I played the first one like 2 years after it came out. I'll probably do something like that with the second one as well.
That's the weird thing that Sony has done to me with where it sits with all the ambiguity that's out there. Like, I have no problem continuing to buy Xbox One games because they're basically like, most of them are like, hey, we'll just upgrade you for free.
Sure.
If you get the new console. With PlayStation 4 and 5, like, I don't even know if I'll be able to play this dang thing when the new one comes out. So,
it's very true.
I'm like, I'm just going to wait. I don't need that game day one. Obviously, I've not been devoting a lot of time to playing games, but my kids sure have. They've been playing, Maddie's been playing Animal Crossing like crazy.
My son's been asking for that lately, so I told him I'd try and track him down a copy.
Okay, well, if he gets it, they'll let him swap friend codes and they'll visit
sure.
each other's islands and do whatever.
For sure.
But our good friend Adam visited her and gave her a lot of goodies early on, so she was super thrilled about that. Was super excited. And Eden, my youngest, has been playing a little bit too, being that it's her sister's game for her birthday, and you can only have, I guess, one island per Switch. She just gets to be somebody that has a house on the island. She doesn't get her own place, but they're still playing it together, so, they're having a good time. And, having that conversation, I think that leads us pretty well to some of our questions. So, as if you've been listening, you know that we haven't been doing questions every episode because it gives us time, to keep the show compact and kind of talk about some other things more. But this is my turn to pick the topic, and I decided I wanted questions again. So we had a few questions from listeners. So I'm going to go through these, and then we have a little topic that we're going to get into for a minute. But so let's start with our questions. That's my favorite part. So first off, our good friend, speaking of Adam, right? He sent us a couple questions through Twitter. So at Bickman2K, 2 questions here. First off, well, maybe one of them's a question, but the first one says, what feature that Xbox One has do you wish the PlayStation 4 did, and vice versa? So do you want to take a stab at this one first? Let's start with Xbox wish it had to the PlayStation 4, and then we'll go the other way.
So I really struggled with this both ways because I just use them to play games. I don't care about the other features, so I had to Google what features these things have and see if there's anything cool that I maybe didn't know about. And none of these features interest me. The only thing I can think is I like having the PSVR. So if Xbox One had some kind of VR set, I think they could do some cool stuff with some of their franchises there, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there's nothing from the Xbox that you would say should move to the PS4?
Honestly, maybe after I hear your idea, I'll steal it. But I realized that the VR thing's not exactly what he's asking for either. So that was kind of a stretch. I just want to play games on them, so I don't care about these other features. The quicker it boots up, the happier I am.
Okay. For me, I would just throw a couple of them out there. Number one, I would have to go with the analog stick placement again for PS4. I really hate the side-by-side sticks, but I've gone over that enough, so I won't go over it anymore. And the other thing I would say is that using the Xbox all the time, I really prefer it in terms of navigating the game library and things versus that gigantic just row of crap that the PS4 has that takes forever to load. So I really don't like that library of just infinite tiles or whatever.
It's funny because I've heard other people on different podcasts complain about both of them, like the UIs. And I put the game in and it's the first one there because the disc is in, so I don't have to search the digital library or whatever. So that's never been something that's bothered me. But I've heard a lot of people say that.
Yeah, I just, it's not friendly. The other way around, I think, is one that's going to be remedied really quick, and that is, I know it is. I did like the idea of the share button on the PS4 controller, and that they're putting that on the new Xbox controller. So there'll be a share button on the controller. And I'm glad they didn't decide to put a giant, stupid trackpad right on the controller, too. But, And so speaking of this, I wanted to ask your opinion, because, we're on the show. Why not? What do you think about this announcement that the DualSense won't work? They're saying the controller thing, right? The backwards compatible PS4 games can use the PS4 controller, but you can't use a PS4 controller for PS5 games.
That's just normal. Every gen doesn't really matter much to me. It'd be nice to just use a controller I already have so I don't have to buy a second one, but it's going to come with one in the box. I'll have to buy one extra one. That's the same as I've done every other gen for the last 20 years, so that doesn't bother me too much. Okay. I get the convenience, so I get why people would have wanted that.
Okay. And I don't see structurally that there's a whole lot of change. And I think that's the thing that people like about PlayStation pads is that they're all pretty similar, right?
Yeah, but like when I bought like a PS2, my PS1 controllers without the analog sticks wouldn't work for games. My PS2 controllers didn't plug into my PS3. My PS3 controllers didn't work for PS4 games. I wasn't expecting anything different, so I'm kind of surprised that...
I thought a lot of PS3 controllers would work on PS4. I know, like fighting sticks and stuff.
I know fighting sticks will. Maybe they do. It's not something I've ever tried to do. So I know the opposite work because one of you guys told me that. So I was having an issue with the PS3 controller.
PS3. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does it matter at all? I mean, probably not because you're not in the ecosystem, but Microsoft saying that, hey, all your old stuff will continue to work on the new machine.
I don't have that much Microsoft stuff, so I have like my one Xbox One controller that I'm going to sell with the system very shortly here. So I'll be needing a new controller with a Series X whenever I get that anyway. Okay.
Yeah. I was just curious about if that made any thoughts to you at all. And then secondly, the question was kind of getting back to what we were talking about, which we don't have an answer to it, but it's something to get to talk about. And that is, seriously, what is Sony doing with PS5 backwards compatibility?
Who knows?
How is it that we're in the middle of August and nobody knows how backwards compatibility works, what the backwards compatibility list is, when the dang thing's coming out, and how much it costs?
Yeah, like everyone gets that Sony and Microsoft are doing their game of chicken with the price and the date. The backwards compatibility, I'm assuming, just sucks or isn't there where they want to talk about it yet, because they would have talked about that already, right? They wouldn't, because Microsoft's already, like, everything possible is going to be backwards compatible. So I think Sony's just going to look bad in comparison to that, so they're just not saying anything.
So you think we should just count on a train wreck, basically?
I think
backwards compatibility?
I think that top 100 games they mentioned, I think count on that and nothing beyond for like a year or two, maybe.
Okay, wow.
That's my guess.
And see, that kind of kills me because up until the PlayStation 3, that was Sony's shtick, right?
Yeah, the first three. PS4 didn't
play all your old games.
Didn't play anything else, though.
I know, but...
They're probably going to push PlayStation Now and stuff like that, right? And they might have another service when the 5 comes out. Maybe that's their answer rather than sticking your discs in it.
I mean, you're right, but from your and my perspective, I think that's terrible. Because it's not hard. They could do an emulator anytime.
Yeah, it would be a neat feature that I might use once in a while, but I'm buying it for new games, so the controller doesn't bother me. When I buy lots of systems over here, some of them are backwards compatible, but like everything we bought in the 90s wasn't backwards compatible. The PS1 to the 2 was, but everything else wasn't.
No, that's not true. Genesis was backwards compatible.
If you bought an extra feature, that's true, yeah. The power base.
Yeah.
But like you can play Genesis on Saturn or 32X or CD or Dreamcast. Like none of those worked with each other. That's just the one exception you found there for Sega.
But I think they had tried. They said with Super Nintendo that they had tried. It's always a cost thing, right? It always comes down to cost.
You could play Game Boy games on your Super Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the lesson. That's the unfortunate lesson that Sony learned from selling a $600 console or whatever at the wrong time. It was the lesson they learned was cut out the backwards compatibility stuff to save money, and I don't agree that that's the right lesson that they should have learned. But
wasn't it a couple of years ago? I think it was Microsoft saying that only some ridiculously low number, like single digits, like 8% of users were using the backwards compatibility. So it really surprises me how much they're pushing it, because I don't think a lot of people use it.
Do you want me to tell you my reason why I think they push it?
Sure.
They don't care about anything but things like Game Pass. They want subscriptions. And when you have to pump out lots of free games on a subscription service, having a huge back catalog makes that a whole lot easier.
So a lot of the games that they've done the work for, you think they're just trying to figure out licensing rights and stuff to add them to the service then?
Yeah, I think that's probably a big piece of the puzzle for them is, and they can sell them on their storefront, still. It's not any extra work for them to hold that bit of data and let you buy it if you want to. But for me, I think they like that Netflix model And having a huge trove of content is what you need to do that.
Yeah. How long do you think before, like, because Netflix used to be great when it was like the only gig in town, and now that there's like 10 different streaming services and everything fractured, do you think that's where gaming's heading soon, and you're going to need like several different subscriptions instead of just one or two?
Well, I mean, you already have that to some degree because you have EA's service. I mean, you can still buy EA games, but they have that EA, whatever they call it, right? Where you can subscribe.
Origin, that's it.
But I want to say, like, doesn't Ubisoft have something like that too?
They do, yeah. Even like they gave away a free game or two on Epic over the last year, but even downloading it free through Epic, you have to also download the Uplay launcher and launch the game through Ubisoft's thing, even though you got it through Epic.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I think all of these companies, well, I mean, a lot of these companies see that as the future. I mean, obviously Sony doesn't seem to have a plan for that right now.
I'm starting to get a little worried about what Game Pass is going to look like in 5 years, because if EA has their own service and Ubisoft has their own service and Activision has their own service, they don't want their games on the Microsoft service. They want their games on their service. So you've got all these fractured things like that, and then you've got different types of games being made when they show up on that kind of service than traditional games. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of those like free to play or just heavily microtransaction games or games as a service style games or subscription based games or battle pass kind of games or episodic content. Like all those things I just said are not things that interest me. And I feel like if we push heavily into the games as a service, that's mostly what we're going to see. Not all. There's still going to be cool things coming out that I like, those single player experiences, but I think they're going to be pretty rare come 5 to 10 years from now.
I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you very sad. Are you ready? We are no longer in the target demographic.
Yeah, I've noticed.
So I think that's the thing we have to realize, is that they don't care if that's not what we want. That's what another group of younger people want. Yeah. My son's fully on board the Fortnite train again. Okay, yeah. And obviously, I think you and I look at that and just go, huh? But that's it. I'm honest enough to realize that this is not about me anymore. I can either enjoy what's there and ride the ride, or I can decide to get off and just play old stuff, which is fine. Obviously, there's enough old stuff to last me until I'm dead, and more. So that's my thoughts. Is you're probably right.
I'm just not ready to let go yet, but I know it's coming. Yeah,
I think we've got maybe a last hurrah. I don't know.
This gen might be it. And it might be wildly different after that.
It might be. Well, sorry to be Mr. Bummer. But
it's Mr. Reality.
There's always plenty of old games. That's the good news, is there are more old games out there than you'll ever get a chance to do anything with. So that's what I think about it. I go, you know what? Why do I have to sweat? I've got nothing to worry about. So, okay. So, our good friend Tom at the Pocky X, he sent us a couple questions, and always as interesting ones as Tom does. So first off, maybe you can tell me about what this is, but I lost my Love Plus DSi case. I don't know what Love Plus is. I think it's anime.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's an anime too.
Anime. I don't know how to pronounce that word even very well. So.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but that would be my guess.
Okay, so sorry, Tom, that you lost your case. And life is no longer worth living, he says. That's rough. What's your most prized piece of gaming junk in the same category of dumb cases? What you got?
Not as cool as his Love Plus case, but I've got a couple of those like old 80s cases that just like lift up and you house your like floppy disks in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just like beige with like that like smoked kind of plastic top. I'm really nostalgic for those things because they used to sit by my grandma's computer and my aunt's computer. We never had a computer for a long, long time. So they just make me think of my family, and I like having them in my game room, even though, they're not valuable or collectible in any way, but I really like them.
Oh yeah, no, I can get that. I've got several of those, and I still actually use them because I still use floppy disks for some of these old computer stuff I'm dealing with. So
Sure.
I've got my 5.25-inch floppy disks organized very nicely, but I can't get away from them. I had to think. I don't know if I can think of any cases that I think. Besides, I'd say maybe if I had to go with that, I would have to say I've got the TurboGrafx 16, CD case, that came with it. That giant plastic case that the whole unit, the CD, and everything all fit inside of. Yeah. Like you were going to actually take that to your friend's house or something. Hey man, I brought my turbo CD and everything. It cost me like $700 for everything inside of this little plastic case. I hope nothing happens to it. I don't know. Back then, come on, man. If you paid that much, you weren't taking that thing to your friend's house. Anyway.
Your parents definitely weren't letting you.
No doubt. I would probably have to say, yeah, that's probably... And, I think it's safe in my closet, Tom. I don't think I'm going to lose it. I also has, this is another anime thing, I think. I just got into One Piece, and I will never have time again in life for anything else. I'm going to guess there'll be something else, Tom, someday.
I don't know if you're aware of how many episodes of One Piece there are, but it is legendary how long that show's been going on and like how many shows there are.
Oh, okay, so then.
There's a lot. Yeah, like I'm this is just going on what I've heard. I don't know if I can't confirm this. I think there's like 900 and some odd episodes of this show. It's insane.
All right, that's like more than like binge watching Friends or something, right? It's
yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's a lot of episodes. So maybe your life is over, Tom. Sorry to hear about it. It's been nice knowing you. But he says, what are your favorite passive to play handheld games? So I get this, like things like you're watching TV and you're playing a game at the same time, but like it doesn't take a lot of thought to do that. So do you have anything like that that's just, it's like a time waster for you?
I really liked a lot of puzzle games on the DS. I remember doing this a lot with like Polarium really early on. That was an early game. MiSTer Driller, played a lot of that, same kind of thing. Pokemon Troise is a really fun like match 3 kind of game. Meteos played a lot of. Puzzle Quest, so there's quite a few that I really, really like. But the DS specifically had a lot of puzzle games that I used. Same kind of idea, like to pass time.
Yeah. If I had to say handheld games that keep me occupied while the TV is on, one of them would be Twitter. And talking with Tom sometimes. Legitimately though, I'd probably say the one king of the hill for me would be Picross games. So
I've never played a Picross game.
You are.
And I need to. They look really good.
I think like there's like 3 seasons of like Picross now on Switch, and they're not too expensive, and lots of old Picross games. So
yeah, I need to check one out.
And if you had, I don't know if it's on Android, but at least on iOS, we were talking a while back. Me and Adam were playing through that Konami one. That's basically Picross, but it's all Konami sprites and everything.
I can't game on my phone. It just feels dirty and wrong.
It's Picross. I mean, you've never played Picross. Yeah. But I would just say it's Picross. It's like made for that kind of thing. So.
I know. I just feel like a dumb idiot playing something on my phone. I've tried in the past.
And I'm with you. I can't play any other kind of game. Anything that's like tries to mimic a real game, I'm like, nah.
Even bored, like my wife's like, play Scrabble with me or something, and I'm like, I hate this. This is not even Scrabble. It's different.
Okay, well, I would encourage you check out a Picross game. There's tons of them that you can choose from, that you can pick from. But anyway, thanks for the questions, Tom. I wish you luck in your marathon of whatever that is. I'd be curious to hear from you too, Tom. Tell us what you play on your no longer clad in the Love Plus DSi. That's one of the games you're playing. And then turning to Facebook, loyal listener Thomas Blaine, he's got a thing here for us. I'm just going to read this out because it's a little bit. So it says, in what ways have your interest in the collecting aspect of the hobby changed over the years? It says, for example, I used to focus on loose cartridges, but then shifted the focus to complete in box in 2013. In 2015, I moved to Japan and got heavy into collecting Japanese video games, and nowadays my focus is almost fully shifted to video game marketing, so signs, standees, etc. So how's the hobby treated you, and have anything changed for you over the years?
Yeah, I've definitely also done that complete in box shift. Whenever I get a chance to upgrade NES cartridges that I have loose, I jump on it. I won't pick up Super Nintendo or Genesis games unless they're boxed, and N64. So same as Thomas in that regard. Other than that, I think I'm moving away from the ephemera lately. I'm feeling like I don't need collector's editions. I don't need the big bundles. I'd rather just get the regular editions in most cases.
You don't need giant statues and things cluttering up your house? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah, I actually gave away a couple to some friends in town that I knew were fans of series I had statues for that I had no interest in. I just thought they were cool statues at the time. Like, I hate Skyrim. I had the big dragon statue from it. So I gave it to a friend who I knew would like that. And same thing with Titanfall. I'd never played it, but the statue looked cool. The big giant robot. Gave that to another different buddy. So I'm looking at, I've got like the big box that Breath of the Wild came in when the Switch came out. I'm like, I don't even like this game. I can, get rid of this and just keep a copy of Breath of the Wild for my son, who still really likes it. So I think I'm going to downsize some of the bigger stuff over the next few months is the plan. And I've been getting rid of amiibos too lately, which I was pretty heavy into. I had like 100
Yeah, I remember you were like going hard and heavy on amiibos for a while.
Yeah, so they're already half gone. I've only got about half of those left. But yeah, I think I just need complete in box games. That would make me happy. And if I could afford it, because I definitely cannot, I really love seeing people collecting like the original art for some of the box art and manuals and stuff. Like the actual like artist paintings. Like these are like tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars now, and nothing. I will never own a single one. But that's something I vicariously lived through other people. I like to see them pick up things like that.
So what would the one piece be? Would it be like the Mega Man 3 box art if you could get like one piece, or what would it be?
No, I'd have to think real hard about that. It wouldn't be a Mega Man one. As much as I love those games, they don't have my favorite box art. Any of them. Might be something Capcom though. Like I really, really dig some of the Street Fighter box art.
Oh yeah.
Even some more obscure games. Like I was talking with Pam on Twitter was showing off some box art she liked, and I popped up a picture of Barai Fighter for NES. Mm-hmm. I love the cover on that. It's so good. So just something like real fantasy or sci-fi heavy I'd probably go for.
Yeah, okay. I can see that, because I'm thinking like some of the Golden Axe artwork.
Yeah, Golden Axe would be up there.
I know some of the Phantasy Star 2 artwork that's out there I just drool over. Yeah, and I love that artist anyway, and it just freaks me out that I can just chat with him on Twitter now, and he responds.
There's a TurboGrafx game called Ballistics.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a really weird cover of this flying winged creature holding a bomb. But they also used that same image on a Judas Priest cover when they reprinted an album and couldn't use the original artwork because a different company has the rights to the first two albums. Uh-huh. So I kind of like that one because it's got it hits gaming and metal.
That's a crossover.
Yeah, I think they used it on some book too. So I got to track down that book and see if it's good too. Maybe I'll like everything that guy's on.
Maybe.
But it's kind of a goofy, weird image, and I kind of like it.
Yeah. For me, I would echo some of what you're saying. I mean, I've gotten pickier because I don't really need a lot of stuff these days. So if I'm getting something, I'm usually going to be a little picky about it. So if I'm buying a Genesis game, I want it complete. I just don't want to fool with loose cartridges, unless it was an insane deal or something. I just don't want to fool with it. Yeah. Or Saturn games. I just, I don't want to fool with it. I've got, and I've still got, I've got a Shining Force 3 that's disc only, and I've got a Guardian Heroes that's missing the manual, and it's just trying to pick up those individual pieces I'd just be better off to sell it and just buy another one honestly, than I would to try to piece it together.
Yeah, those games are tough ones to try and piece together.
I know, and that's the thing is, part of me is like, maybe I'll just, it is what it is. I can play the game, so whatever. For a few of those, I've got a nice color laser, so I've printed off some artwork and stuff. I mean, that I've put in there. It looks good enough on my shelf for right now, and it's not too good that it would fool anybody, obviously, if they went to buy it. So I'm not too concerned about it. It makes me happy for the moment.
Nice.
I guess I'd say, for me, it's become more and more into the repair side. I've been getting way more into that and acquiring the tools to do that work. I would like to pick up some stuff to do, like a chip programmer. So maybe start burning some ROM chips and doing some things with that. And it's mostly just because it's interesting to me. And I like the doing things with my hands part. And it's a challenge. So, like digging into these compact computers and, okay, what's wrong with it? Let's, figure it out and tear it apart and redo it. Or like that Neo Geo, putting the universal BIOS in it, that's kind of fun. And I don't do that service for other people, so nobody has to worry about complaining about whether my work is good, bad, or otherwise. It's just for me. So, but yeah, well, thanks everybody. Those are all the questions that we got in. I appreciate that very much, everybody taking the time. And I'd say if you guys have these that come up, in the future, feel free to shoot them over. I'll just try to catalog them, and then when we do another question show, we can put them together. That doesn't mean I won't ask for them again, but if you're listening to this and something strikes your mind, and you want to send something off, you can send a tweet or whatnot, and I'll make sure to catch it. So now that we're done with questions, I wanted to kind of go over into a topic that's been in the news, and we were talking about the other day, Kelsey, online about, specifically, what brought this up was the analog pocket, right? So I guess before we go too far, you want to share the whole analog pocket thing for you, or?
Sure. Yeah. Like, I was interested in getting one. I knew they let us know like a few days early, like, hey, pre-orders are opening up on whatever day. So assuming it's a pre-order that I could walk in and pre-order whenever I wanted, I didn't jump on it in the first 5 seconds that it apparently sold out pre-orders in. And I don't think they were public about the number of pre-orders they had either.
I don't think they ever are.
Yeah. So anyway, it sold out. Later that day, they put up a thing saying, hey, we're going to boost our production and open up a second pre-order at a later date. We'll let you guys know. Join our mailing list. So I'm going to try and be a little more on it next time when the second one comes up, because I had no idea that these were limited. I knew they sold them and then cut off production. I just didn't realize how quick they were and how in demand they were. So I didn't get one. And they're not shipping until like May next year either, if everything goes right. So the whole pre-order thing seems really weird to everybody, I think.
Does it, though? I mean, I want to get into some of that, because that's the way it works with limited run games. I mean, they basically have the exact same model.
I know they've been doing it more frequently, though, but limited run will say, hey, we're having a pre-order for 30 days. Whoever orders in these 30 days is guaranteed a copy. When they do their old style batches, they'll say like, hey, we have 3,000 copies, 2 per person, go. Pocket didn't do either of those things, so that's why I was kind of caught off guard.
Right, but I mean, in terms of when they do their limited release, I mean, they do tell you the numbers, and Analog doesn't. But
that's what I mean. Like, if they would have said like, hey, we're making 5,000 pockets or 20,000 pockets, that gives me an idea of how quick I need to be, and I didn't have any concept of that. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing we were explaining to you, because I think you weren't as aware of the company and how their business model works.
I was not at all. This was all new to me.
And so, I think it's probably known that Analog engages in that create scarcity. And you can look at that good, bad, or otherwise. I'm not making that a judgment call. I'm just saying that seems to be their business model is underproduce, drive up demand, sell through all stocks. So they're never worried about holding on to stock.
Like, because I wasn't in the market for any of their previous consoles, so I was aware there was a Super NT and the Mega SG, did not occur to me this is how the business is run, though. So when one finally came up, I was caught off guard.
Yeah, and I can think of it both ways. I mean, if I'm a person that runs a company, if I go this route, I'm guaranteed profit, and it's all upside, right? I take really no risk. I don't have to pre-buy any materials or any stock. I'm guaranteed to sell through everything that I order. All I have is dev cost up front, right? And so, but I'll make sure I recoup that by doing a run of whatever, and then they can always do more runs. I mean, they've never promised that this is the only run they'll ever. Well, I would take that back. I guess they have, but
have they? That's another thing I didn't know.
Like the original NT, that one that's like milled out of aluminum block or whatever. Yes, those were a certain number of those, and that was it.
Okay.
They did one run of those, and then I think not too long ago they said, we're doing another run. This will be the last run ever. Well, it's because they're coming out with the mini NT, which is a newer version that's not milled out of solid aluminum. So maybe a little more affordable than the NT was. But that seems to be their business model. And again, I'm not here to say whether that's a good, bad, or otherwise business model. I can understand for the consumer, it's frustrating.
No, I'm with you. If they can make it work, I want these products to exist. Even if I don't have one, they're cool. I see the appeal. If they're making it work as a business, that's great. I just didn't realize it was that way. I need to do more due diligence going forward on those kind of things.
And I think it's probably reasonable because we're probably talking about a fairly niche market. I mean, you have your companies like your Hyperkins and things that can make retro compatible hardware at a price point that's probably a little more mainstream than what Analog is aiming for. I think Analog wants to be that boutique product.
Totally. Yeah.
Which is fine. There's a market for that. It's just it's not the same market that Hyperkin's trying to meet, right? And so I think that's it. If you made the kind of quantity of purchases of product that Hyperkin does to try to sell through, something like Analog wouldn't make it, right? I don't know if they could sell that much product. At least not with what they're creating now.
Right.
So I guess to start some of this, having said that and getting to, I kind of wanted to, because this is the first time I've ever heard you express interest in anything like this. Any of these FPGA consoles. So tell me why and what leads you down this path.
Well, the Pocket specifically appealed to me because of the adapters in the dock. So I have plans to stream stuff in the future and capture more things once I'm done with NES. So having a way to capture things for like the Neo Geo Pocket and the links through just a real easy HDMI port through this console, that's the biggest selling point for me. All the Game Boy stuff is great too, and I 100% see myself using that as well. But those two consoles specifically, I don't want to mod an actual console to do that with. So this seemed like a really fun alternative and something I would just use. Like we were just talking about, like passive handheld games. Like, I could throw Picross in my Game Boy and watch some One Piece one day.
That's right. Or watch a lot of One Piece.
I'm not going to watch One Piece. It's pirates. Disgusting, nasty pirates.
Yeah. As we all know of your love of pirates. You're like Jerry in the puffy shirt, right? So yeah, because that was kind of the thing that surprised me when you talked about it. I'm like, what? This doesn't seem like... Because you've not been fans of any of these like Hyperkin products and things, right?
I got a Retron 5 when they launched, and I hated it. I got rid of it pretty early, and I had some issues with them as a store owner too. There was lots of faulty, badly built machines I had to send back for refunds and repairs and stuff, and it was not fun to deal with. So I didn't want to deal with those. So the more upscale boutique stuff appeals to me quality wise too.
Okay, so you're saying, hey, I'm willing to pay a higher price to get something that's going to be good and last.
That's going to work, and it's going to work like it says it's going to work. Yeah.
Okay. No, and I get that completely. I mean, you're talking, I just bought a stupid Neo Geo, so yeah, I get you. So does this lead you to then to say, okay, well, I want to stream or I want to do these other things. Should I look at some of these other FPGA-based consoles that Analog or other companies make?
I don't know if it's an FPGA-based machine, but the Polymega has been on my radar as well.
That's a pure software emulation machine.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Just same thing, ease of use for a lot of different consoles. So just buying the one machine, being able to do all that disk-based stuff, and then if I really wanted to, I can upgrade it for some of the cartridge stuff, which I don't know if I would do, but being able to play, Saturn and Sega CD and PlayStation 3DO, like that's pretty appealing to be able to just throw those on through an HDMI, real easy. It's more for the convenience than anything in that case.
So tell me, like a Polymega, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a complete software, emulator box with add-ons for cart slots and things.
Yeah.
You could literally do that with your PC now. What makes you want a Polymega and not just go, I'll just do this with my PC right now?
Ease of use, for one. I don't have to buy anything for my PC. I'm already just buying it. It's ready to go out of the box. I just like, new game consoles are getting less and less exciting. So it's fun to be excited about one again, honestly. And I'm probably tricking myself into it. It's like I'm buying a new Sega Saturn machine. It's exciting. Some of it's just, like purely psychological. And I totally get that. But it's just fun. Just a way to keep the collecting going too. Because as anyone who's been listening to this for a long time has realized, the pickups become less and less as the scarcity grows, the prices grow, our collections have grown. It's just harder to pick things up in so many different ways.
Yeah. So with a lot of these FPGA consoles, I know a big thing too is they get jailbroken like almost instantly to play ROMs. So in reality, I think they put in very loose protections against that. Is that
like a legal thing? They just have to throw something in there to say they
I don't even know if that's... it's not illegal to sell emulators or anything, so I don't think so. They just can't include any proprietary code. So you supply your own BIOS or whatever. And all the machines they've made so far, unless I'm missing something, don't have proprietary BIOS. But I could be wrong. These systems do have some software underneath them, but I would imagine they've reverse engineered, or if not, Nintendo would have sued them to death. So I think they just basically run on the hardware and everything's structured that way. So besides like some copy protection, that's probably not too hard to break. I don't think there's anything else that's in there. But like if you want Sega CD or Saturn or disc-based stuff, then you need a BIOS file. And that's why I think we haven't seen an analog PlayStation, right. Or some of these other systems, because how would they sell it? They'd have to reverse engineer everything, and they probably could, but it's more expensive. You
mentioned the jailbreaking too, and that's, not something I need because I've got most of the software I want to play. I just need the box to run it. I don't see myself throwing ROMs on any of these.
And I would imagine, for you, that's not an appeal. I guess for a lot of people it probably is, because they could just say, oh, cool, I'll get this thing, and then 5 minutes later I jailbroke it, and now I have all the ROMs,
Yeah, because I'm not in that mindset, it always blows my mind when I hang out with any friend, because they've got dozens of jailbroken machines and hacked machines and modded machines to play. Like, he's like, you want to play, Mario on my hacked Wii or my NES Mini or my EverDrive, or like they've got like a dozen options, and it's just like so different than how I do things. It just never crosses my mind.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same mind. Just when you have, it's like, oh, hey, I've got this on my hacked Wii. You want to play? And I'm like, no, I don't want to at all. But thank you. And I'm not trying to be snobby or upset with anybody that does. Like Sean from the Playcast, that's how he plays. That's fine. I'm not trying to gatekeep or anything else. It's fine if you want to do that. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's it's okay, right? You can do whatever you want with. Same thing with like jailbreaking these things. And you're right. I hear a lot of people say like that's one of the first things they do when they get a device is jailbreak it and do whatever with it. Again, it's your thing. You can do what you want. It just, that sort of thing just doesn't appeal to me. I like the games, right? That's kind of part of what I like with this thing. But that's not for everybody. I'm just always amazed at like how fast when these products come out, like the jailbreak drops like almost instantly.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of that is maybe the manufacturer going like, okay, just hold the jailbreak for like a day or two and then release it to build hype or something. I don't know. I've got no idea. So have you ever played on I mean, we'll get to some of these other devices, but have you ever played on an analog console before?
No, I've never even seen one in person.
So what makes you say Pocket? Yeah.
Well, they've got a good reputation from what I've seen online. It's just quality hardware, and this not being their first one, this being like their third, fourth. So you done NES, Super NES, Genesis, right?
Fourth, yeah.
Yeah, so fourth one. I figure by this point, they've got it down. It's not going to be any major production issues, or there always could be with tech, but. I figure they've got it down well enough and a good reputation they built up that I'm just expecting a quality product from them at this point. Whereas I remember when the NT got announced and like you said, the aluminum case and stuff, like it was like really cool, super expensive.
Yeah.
I didn't see why I needed it because I can already capture my NES and I'm not looking for the top tier quality in my captures. I'm fine with what I've got in my composite. So I don't know. They've worn me down over time, maybe too.
Because I was going to say, there's like a ton of these like Chinese knockoff machines that you can play portable games in. I mean, this is not a niche thing. Again, they're going to make a higher tier one because that's what they do. But I mean, there's been knockoff Game Boys and things for years.
With the issues I had with the Retron, I don't want to go for the cheap things either anymore. I'd rather go for the one I know is going to work.
Yeah. So software emulation versus hardware FPGA emulation. I mean, both of them are still emulation. They're just done in different ways.
I'm hoping to learn here because I've heard that. I just don't quite know what that means. If you can dumb that down for me a little bit.
So software emulation is translating the code of like one system to another. So if I'm going to emulate a Sega Saturn, the normal code and writes and things to like the devices on the Saturns, like, feeding data from here or there and expecting things back. The emulator sits between that and the hardware that's really on like your PC and translates those things to get the proper data back on the other end, right?
So is this like what Bleem was on the Dreamcast?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Or any PC emulator that you want to play right now, right? So on your PC, you want to emulate Super Nintendo or whatever. And I'll be honest to our listeners, I don't know what the latest and greatest Super Nintendo emulator
I remember Z-SNES from like 2 decades ago.
Yeah, I used to use like Nesticle and stuff like, a million years ago, Genesis.
Right. I don't know that one.
It was the same thing as Nesticle. Same guys, just a Genesis emulator.
Okay.
They also had one for CPS1, which was, God, what did they call that? It was another terrible name like that. But anyway, that just sits in it mimics the hardware calls using totally different sets of hardware. Whereas FPGA-based emulation there is an FPGA, which is a device that can be software reconfigured to act like another piece of hardware. So you're literally changing the hardware itself to try to match as closely as possible the original hardware of the device. So you're still emulating something because it's not the same chips, right? But you're doing it through a hardware solution instead of a software solution. Does that make sense?
I think so. People seem to prefer the hardware solution. Is that just because there's less bugs, glitches, there's more compatibility. Like, what's the benefit to hardware over software?
I think that's a good question. From what I understand of it, the rationale being that if they can work out the exact specifics of all the chips that are involved in a device, they could program an FPGA to behave exactly like those same sets of chips. So in essence, you should get the exact same timings and responses. It should behave just as the machine did. I think that requires a level of perfection that probably doesn't exist right now, but they can get pretty close to it. I mean, in terms of like a lot of these older machines, it's not cheap to do, whereas software emulation can be done pretty cheap. And like the Retron 5 or whatnot, you can cram a lot of stuff in a box. But that's what you hear about cores. Cores are just the software that reconfigures that FPGA to behave like other pieces of hardware. Software emulation, I think we've seen from the days probably where we messed around with it, it's gotten really good. I mean, look at what the Xbox does, right? You can play your old Xbox games in 4K now, and that's all done through emulation on the machine, and it plays great. So is it bad? I don't think so. If it's done well, it's just done differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's typically how companies like if we go back a little bit, like to the eShop, like that's what Nintendo's doing when they put something on the Virtual Console.
It's all software emulation, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's done well, right? They've done a good job of it.
I'll take your word for it. I don't think I've ever actually played anything on the Virtual Console.
I've got a few Virtual Console games. So I've got like Star Fox 64, and I think I got that with like some points through like the whatever that you could put the codes in eons ago, right?
Club Nintendo.
That's right, yeah. So I think I got few free games back in the day from that. Nice. They play well.
I always sent off for the physical stuff, so I never got any games.
I did that too. I always wanted like the prize, like you get the platinum prize each year.
Yeah.
Right. And I got the platinum prizes, but I always ended up like a few codes extra or something, like a few points. I'm like, like Star Fox 64. Okay, sure.
I have every single set of posters that Club Nintendo ever had up for grab. I always snag those. I really liked some of the art on them.
I really hate that they've gone away from that and only have digital rewards now. I don't even bother.
No, me
I don't
neither.
even bother with the coins and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, they'll send me an email once in a while like, hey, you want this cool background or theme on your phone? I'm like, no, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, I know. The same thing, like they'll send me a thing, for your birthday, like an email, like, oh, it's your birthday. You can download this Windows wallpaper or something. I'm like, why? I don't care, man. Yeah. Just leave me alone. I could just Google that in like 5 seconds. Thanks anyway. But yeah, and I think that sometimes I hear some pushback when people talk about emulation with FPGA, but I mean, it's emulation. I mean, it's not a perfect replication. I mean, I guess if you could get it to be perfect, it would be more of a simulation than an emulation, but it's not. So until it gets to that point.
I think they typically say like 99% compatibility when they're marketing these things. Is that just to cover their butts? It usually works with everything that came out in the retail life of the console?
Usually pretty much, because you wouldn't buy a product without it. But honestly, you'd find the same thing in software emulation. Like,
I remember, this is probably a while back, and I don't know if this is a fixed issue, but like there's problems with certain late release NES or Super NES games that use extra hardware in the cartridges.
So, like, you're thinking of back when NOAC-based machines. See, like Castlevania 3 wouldn't play on some devices and stuff, right?
And like Mega Man X3 and Stunt Race effects and stuff like that. So is that not an issue anymore?
No, because it's different. So like a lot of those Nintendo, like I have, what was it? It was like that first big Nintendo, the Messiah, right? Remember the Nintendo? You don't remember that?
No, what is the Messiah?
You don't remember? Oh, come on, man.
Tell me about the Messiah, Chris.
You look a lot like the Messiah, so I'll let. No, it was that was the company, and I'm trying to remember the name of the product. It's eluding me right this minute, but they recreated the NES. It was like one of the first ones that came out, where it was a clone of the NES. It looked like the NES, except it was smaller, kind of flat, and it would play NES and Famicom games. and it used a NOAC, or a Nintendo on a chip, which were real common in China. And those things it's all hardware, because it's baked into this chip. They just basically we'll take all the pieces of an NES and make it on one chip. So that's what all those stupid plug-and-plays and things that were made out of China. Because it was super cheap, but compatibility wasn't great, because that's not what they were aiming for, right? It's good enough. And that was the issue with that, was that bespoke hardware wasn't good.
So that's accurate. Not an issue with any of the software and the FPGA emulation we're talking about right now.
I think at the level we're talking about, in most cases, no.
Okay.
I mean, we'll probably, we might touch on MiSTer in a minute, which is its own separate monster, but...
Is that true with CD-based stuff as well? Because they wouldn't be adding any extra chips to a CD, so they all, I assume if one works, they all should?
The only thing you have to keep in mind is that I don't know of any FPGA-based CD system emulation.
Right.
It's only software-based emulation. So, I don't know. Will we see some at some point? I guess if they figure it out.
Is there any... I guess what I'm asking is there any notoriously hard to get to run Saturn game? It's just the system in general. Once you've got it running, there's no specific game that should be a pain. Assuming you can figure out disk swapping for some of the multi-disc games.
You'd have to figure out disk swapping. You have to figure out RAM carts. But other than that, I wouldn't think so. I'm not an expert in that in any case. But I mean, it's all the hardware never changes a lot like it did in cartridge world. Right. So besides RAM carts and things like that, it shouldn't be much of a problem. And a lot of those systems never had stuff. I mean, PS1, it was just the PS1, right?
Yeah.
So never had to worry about that stuff. So yeah. So obviously the analog, we've been talking about that. There was one of the early ones of these was that retro USB AVS. So you remember when that came out?
I do. That's a sleek looking machine.
Yeah. Doesn't tempt you to ever want one of those, or?
It looks great. I've got a functioning NES that I can record on, so I don't know why I'd spend, I think they were $400 or something US too. They were not cheap. So if the price was right, I might have bitten, but
I think they're $200, but
even then it's US. My exchange, it's basically $300 for me. That's too much for how often I would use it.
Yeah. But a handheld thing you would play a lot, though.
I would, yeah. And it gives me access to two systems that I can't easily record in any other way.
Okay. That makes sense. So, MiSTer, right? And I'm going to say right up front for those that are listening, I am not a MiSTer expert in any way, shape, or form. I don't own the hardware. All I've done is glean some information. But the MiSTer is an open hardware project that's FPGA-based to basically hardware emulate everything that can slam into it. So you have to buy all these pieces that you kind of assemble yourself, unless you buy one that somebody else has assembled. They're all off-the-shelf parts. And the software is open source stuff, basically. So... obviously no cartridge ports or anything like that. They're all ROMs and things.
It's kind of like a build your own analog.
Yeah, except you don't put physical software in it. You're using ROMs for everything.
Gotcha.
But that seems to really be taking off for a lot of people. To me, it just sounds way too kludgy to want to mess with. It just like, oh man, I would have to put a lot of work into this thing, and I just don't know if I want. It doesn't sound like fun to me. I like original hardware though, so.
Say maybe that's part of the appeal to people. You've been doing your old repairs and getting better with the physical tinkering lately. Maybe people like that side of it.
And maybe, but Josh from Shoot the Corecast, he's got a MiSTer, and I think John does too. They're both on that show, and I've seen them use it to play some games before. Because you can emulate hardware that's arcade boards or, video game systems or whatever you like.
That's pretty cool, actually, the arcade side. That's a little appealing because it's not something I can't, fill my house with dozens of arcade machines. Or my wife won't let me. I could, but she won't let me.
You could. You'll just be lonely.
Yeah. It's okay. Alien versus Predator will keep me warm at night.
If you curl up next to the tube in the power supply, it probably will.
Yeah. So price-wise, how are these compared to the analog?
From what I understand, and again, I've not bought a MiSTer, and I know there are people that build them, but you might have to build your own from parts, and I don't know. From what I understand, there's several $100s.
That's just to get like the base set up, and then you buy cores on top of that?
No, you don't buy the cores. The cores are the software that emulates the machines. So
once you have the MiSTer, you're done
source.
spending? The rest is all software?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, I misunderstood that. Okay. Interesting. That's something I need to look into a little more then, because I'd love to dig into some arcade stuff for sure.
Sure, but you could do Game Boy, Neo Geo, Pocket, Arcade. Again, it's all ROM-based, so you have to have ROMs. But
right.
It's HDMI out. It's gonna, USB control in sort of thing. So I guess whatever you want to hook up to it is what you want to use. Again, I'm not an expert. There's people that know a whole lot more about this stuff than I do. That's my understanding of it. Again, it's a very tinkery thing, and I keep reading about all the time, like, oh, hey, there's this new core for this system now, and there's a core for this system now, because being open source, people are just kind of working on things, and like, oh, hey, look, here's CPS2, or here's
I was just gonna ask that
System 16 is out.
Arcade hardware is so fractured over the years. Like, I'm curious how many eras they've got covered by now.
And I don't know. I'm sure you could probably very quickly Google that stuff and figure it out. But to me, it's like a rabbit hole that's sounds time consuming to get into, and I don't know if I have the time. And I think that's the constraint now. I mean, does it sound somewhat interesting? Yeah, I mean, it does kind of sound interesting, but it sounds like it would be at the stage it's at kind of like this homebrew level, that it's a time commitment.
So is there like
I don't know.
one company making these, or is it like a RetroPie, like whoever wants to make them can make them kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like, here's just these parts that you need to run this stuff. Like, here's this FPGA board, and so it's this conglomeration of parts that you assemble.
Okay. You said Josh has one, right? Maybe I'll bug him for some more info too.
Yes, he does. So yeah, you would have to ask him for more details. I don't know how difficult or easy it is to get any of it up and running. If I had to guess, there's probably enterprising individuals that will just build one for you and sell it to you as well. But the things I start thinking about with off-the-shelf hardware is, I mean, it's cool until the company that produces that hardware decides, yeah, we're going to make something else now. So now what do, right? Do you start over again? Because this is not a product that a manufacturer is making discreetly for this purpose, like analog or something, right? Whoever produces these parts could just decide, like, nah, we're not using this part anymore. We're going to start making this other part.
Do you think Analog would ever make like an arcade style machine of theirs?
No. Because what would you plug into it? Selling ROMs is illegal.
Your JAMA boards that you've got kicking around your house. Everybody's got some of those.
Well, you don't need to plug a JAMA board into anything but a display and controls. So, yeah, I mean, the board is the game. So what would you plug into it, right? There's nothing. So they would have to find a way to sell you the ROMs legally, and I think that kind of defeats the purpose.
Right.
There's already a bunch of machines that do that. I mean, like, I don't know if you remember that, like, giant Capcom arcade stick that they released just a little while ago.
The logo? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the ugliest design.
But from what I understand, it plays fantastically. And it's really high quality. Again, you can only play those games, but, I mean, that's what those rights holders are going to do. They want to make as much money as they can off that stuff.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't see any way that Analog can do it. But this sort of homebrew sort of thing can exist. I just don't think, I mean, don't get me wrong, Analog could do it. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the market is just basically. It's like, yeah, here's a ROM box. I think legally, there might be like, hey, wait a minute. This has no purpose other than to do illegal things with.
They just have to make a Neo Geo one, and that you can somehow play other arcade stuff in, because then you can put your Neo Geo carts in there.
You'd have to have something like that you could jailbreak all of a sudden, right? And then do whatever you wanted with it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe you'll talk more about this. Maybe you'll find out more and you'll know more about this than I will. I've seen like pictures of them and I'm always like, that looks like some kind of janky home built something or other.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen them a couple times too. Like Jeremy Parrish will like post a picture of his like setup for recording, and I'll always be like, what the heck is that? And,
that looks kind of crappy, but I guess they're not really built to be that. They're not a consumer product, so that's fine as long as it does its job. Last thing I wanted to get to kind of wrap up this topic. I mean, obviously we could go on for a long time, but flashcards are not new. They've been a thing for a while, but now a lot of these flashcards implement FPGAs in them to emulate like those special chips that we've been talking about, right? So they can play all these games, because how else are you going to get an FX game, a Super FX game to work?
Right.
So recently, Crix in the EverDrive Pro for the Genesis has included for its FPGA that's built in a core for NES games, so you can play NES ROMs on your Sega Genesis. So this is taking it to a whole new level.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so not only can you play all your Genesis ROMs off the flash cart, you can play all NES on your Genesis off this same flash cart.
Why would you want to play with that terrible, terrible controller, though?
You could wire up any controller you want. You could wire up an NES controller and make it work. But
then can I play Genesis with my NES though? Controller?
You should be able to wire that. Absolutely, your Super Nintendo controller anyway. I understand why you couldn't do that. It'd be pretty easy. But anyway, so I mean, we're kind of getting into this whole other realm of these things are seeping into everything, right? But that's really interesting to me that you're using the Sega Genesis hardware and this FPGA together to play a whole nother system's software on another old system. It's very out of the box, you know what I mean?
Right. So is that only possible to play previous gen stuff, or could they also, do you think it's possible to do like Super Nintendo or Jaguar or anything, or is that pushing the system beyond what it's capable of, even with the extra tech in the EverDrive?
I don't know the hardware specifics on these systems, but I've seen things done on the NES where somebody has gotten very ingenious and they've written software and wired things up in a way that they could basically just directly feed the video out of one thing through the NES hardware and back out of it. So it's almost like you're just using it as a video pass through. And so you're essentially can play other things through your NES. Or no doubt you've seen things like the cartridge thing that fits on your Super Nintendo and lets you play Sega Genesis games. But it doesn't really... I haven't seen that. You haven't? Okay, so it doesn't really do that?
Same idea, it's just passing the video through?
Right, it's passing video and sound through and using the controller port for... Right. It's the same thing as like a Super Game Boy, right? It's just using the basics pieces of the Super Nintendo. It's not really doing any of the processing or anything. Right. So to a degree, yeah. I don't see why not. Is there a demand for a standalone device that does that? I don't know, but I think it's fascinating, and I think we might see more of this stuff. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
This is all, like, I've been aware of all this stuff for a long, long time, but it's just recently with the Polymega in the pocket that I've started ever looking a little further into them or considering buying one. So it's like a new world's open up, even though I've been aware of it for a while.
Right, and you have to wonder, as all this old hardware that we like are becoming antiques, literally, how long have they got? I mean, unless there's people like you and I that don't do the maintenance for them, but I think most people, when their NES dies, they're just going to pitch it, right? They're not going to repair it or have somebody try to fix it. They're just going to go, it doesn't work anymore, and it's gone.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I've got cap kits for like 4 different systems I need to get around to installing.
Yeah, I've the same thing, right? I'm trying to do preventative maintenance on a lot of my old consoles, and so it sounds like you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, one of them's to fix a broken machine, and the others are preventative maintenance.
Okay, so what do you got on the bench that you're going to redo?
Turbo Duo and a Turbo CD.
Ooh.
CDX and a Vectrix.
You must have a steady hand.
Yeah, steady hand. I just I'm not as practiced as yourself, so I'm very slow. So projects that probably take someone 32 an hour would take me like 4 or 5 hours sometimes.
Do you have surface mount gear though to handle that stuff?
No, I just wing it.
Oh, dude, that's all surface mount with like a lot of very careful traces. So I'll be curious to hear how you do. I wouldn't tackle that at my level. So
instilling me with confidence. I love it.
No, I'll be curious to hear if your stuff works when you're done.
I've opened up the CDX and I'm like, maybe I'll do this one last because it's intimidating.
Or even like the Turbo Duo, they have such leaky caps that you're probably going to have board damage that you're going to have to try to deal with, and you may lose pads and things. So, I mean, though probably the toughest one I did was that Model 1 Sega CD. Which, if you have any of those, do them tomorrow.
Mine are Model 2s.
Okay, you're pretty good then. That thing, yeah, it was problematic. I got around it, but it's kind of like I'd say if you've done Game Gears, you've done Game Gears, right?
I've done one Game Gear.
Okay, it's not too terribly different depending on how bad the Game Gear was that you dealt with.
It wasn't bad. It was nothing was leaking.
Oh, okay. You might really want to look at your Turbo Duo, and hopefully it's not.
Yeah, last time I played it, I was having some issues with the sound, which is why I got the cap kit. So I think there might be something going on in there.
Oh, yeah. I'd say if nothing else, clean the board and get that crud off your board as quick as you can. You don't want that stuff eating your traces to pieces. No, it's interesting. I didn't know you had something lined up. I've been doing work like that. Like I just got a cap kit in for the Neo Geo. I've got a friend that... Like I said earlier, I don't do paid work for the people because I'm not confident enough to take money for that stuff. But I got a friend who's John. You know John.
Yeah.
I'm going to recap his ColecoVision and do a AV mod on his so he can play it. But I'm doing that gratis as a friend, so you can't. If something happens, don't get mad at me.
I do have one more bigger project that I kind of wanted all those other ones to be practice for. I have a Nintendo Red Tent machine that needs a lot of work, like the monitors and the control pads and everything. So, and the sound. So I've got parts. I just need to get the confidence and give that one a go and pull everything apart. It's going to be a bigger job.
That's a big job. I think that'll be easy because it's all going to be through hole parts. It's just like that NES TV. I would highly recommend that when you get yours that you recap it, because I was kind of surprised at what was going on inside there. They didn't use the highest quality components. I'll just say that. And it's a long job, but it's not hard. It's all through hole stuff. So if you take your time, it's just a lot of capacitors that are in there.
Yeah, I think the most complicated job I've done is my dad had an old rear projection television that was an issue, and I had to replace a lot of stuff in there. Specifically, like there's like a convergence chip in there, and it had like 24 solder points on it too. That took a long time and was very delicate, but I got to go on again.
Do you have a desoldering station?
Yeah. Very
good. Okay, that'll make your life super simple then. Mm-hmm. I cringe when I hear people that don't. I'm like, boy, you're in for some fun. I wouldn't want to do some of this work anymore. I used to, but I'm like, man, now that I got that thing, I would never go back if you paid me. Anyway, I guess we've gotten off topic, but Bill's not here, so somebody had to drag us off topic. But no, I guess that's kind of it in terms of emulation machines. I just kind of want to talk about that because it's a thing that's... And to hear you talk about it, I just kind of thought like, wait a minute, Kelsey's talking about emulation machines? Did I...
People grow, people change.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm like, who is this human being that I'm speaking with?
I don't need a Series X for like 2 or 3 years, so I got to spend my money somewhere.
That's true. Well, I mean, I would be curious too from our listeners what you guys think about this stuff. Do you think this is, I mean, obviously it's a future that we can't avoid, but is it something that you're looking forward to? Is it something that original hardware or die? You're just going to try to keep this stuff going forever? Or I'd be curious to hear what everybody thinks about that stuff. So thanks for taking the time to listen along with this. So, Kelsey, as we draw this to a close, anything new on the writing front?
No, it's been pretty slow. So with the traveling that I did and the NES I've been playing lately, nothing new on the writing front. Just lots of reading lately instead.
Okay, very good. So hopefully we'll see some new reviews for you soon. I can't wait for the next
releases
Pantsu game or whatever.
Are sparse right now, and
it's summer.
Codes are sparse. Well, and with all the COVID stuff, things are delayed and pushed back. There's not as many review opportunities coming up as there were 5 months ago.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, don't get me started, or I'll get down the rabbit hole of Street Fighter V Season 5. But and how long that's going to take. Anyway, no, okay, very good. But again, where's the website if people want to read your reviews?
VG Charts with a Z on the end, or a Z if you're up here.
Very good. And where can people find you?
Twitter at Kelsey Polnick, KELSY POLNIK.
Very good. I hope your follower count has been going through the roof.
Slowly climbing. I'm almost up to 1,000 YouTube subscribers too, which is something I've been hoping to get to for a while.
Awesome. I'm always surprised. Like, I'll see your videos get uploaded in the feed and they've got some views, and I'm like, man, somebody really wants to watch 20 hours of baseball.
And the videos that have the most comments and views are none of the videos you'd think. It's always
Godzilla, right?
Godzilla's really high. Spy Hunter's really high, which that one's maybe not as surprising. But then beyond those, it's like soccer, wrestling, and baseball games.
Weird. Yeah. So tell people where they can find your YouTube channel.
2000 Crabmaster on YouTube.
Yeah, and you're just, every time you beat an NES game in your crazy climb, it goes up, right?
Yeah. So I put the video on there with what number out of 669 I've beaten, the goal for the game, because some of them don't just have a last boss you got to beat. So I kind of give myself a goal of being a high score, getting the game to loop or whatever it is. And then, it's just the raw, boring gameplay most of the time.
Good thing you can fast forward if you want to, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Use it like the Wario's Woods. I've got it transferring the file right now. It's 4.5 hours long of just dropping blocks and bombs.
There's one dedicated soul somewhere that watches the whole thing. Who knows, right?
Surprises me sometimes, some of those baseball videos.
Somebody needs to go to sleep at night. They just put that on and away they go.
Sure. Well, Bill says he just throws some of them on while he's at work in the background. So he's was talking to me about Destiny of an Emperor, which was 30 hours or something like that. And I think he watched half of it.
It's like ASMR videos, right? It's just that background. Just
put them on while you're watching One Piece.
Everything is good.
Yeah.
Well, outside of that, obviously the show stuff you can follow on Twitter at Collectorcast. We're on Facebook, Collectorcast. You can look for us there. We have a YouTube channel that when we do the video versions, Bill is kind enough to upload them. You won't find this one because Bill's not here and we're not smart enough to figure out how to record all this stuff. But the other ones will be there.
Bill will sell us an FPGA emulation machine to record our videos soon.
Twitch, I think we might try to get something going with Twitch here at some point in time. You can join us over at rfgeneration.com. That's where our home base is. You can find the show at collectorcast.com or pretty much any podcast streaming platform. You can find us there, except for the Amazon one. So I'm getting ready to add us, though. So we'll be on the Amazon Music platform as well if you want to find us. But other than that, SoundCloud. Still haven't figured out SoundCloud. But anyway. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will talk to you soon.
Not going to do that.
Yes, you are.